Several years ago, as a matter of fact, well over a decade, about 15 years ago, that I walked into the city gate of the old city of Jerusalem, and I was presented with a handbill offering me a $10,000 reward if I could answer the following questions. Now, I thought that this was, just providential. I mean, this is like a windfall from heaven, because it's more than a coincidence that I could have used $1,000, and they're offering $10,000. And here are the first two things on this. Now, remember, this is given to me by an anti-missionary group, a Jewish anti-missionary group. They want to shut the mouths of any Christians coming in who think that they're going to change the land of Israel when they come over on a tour, and just out of their mouth is all of a sudden going to change the land of Israel, and everyone's going to believe in Jesus and live happily ever after. Okay? So, you've got Jewish lawyers who make this up, and they're offering $10,000. Now, how many of you think that a Jewish lawyer is going to write something where it's going to be easy to collect $10,000? Exactly, right. Number one, prove from the Christian New Testament scriptures that Jesus has an ancestral lineage to King David. Again, prove from the Christian New Testament scriptures that Jesus has an ancestral lineage to King David. Now, for those of you who may not be aware of this, this is the claim. And even Yeshua himself said to the Pharisees, whose son is the Messiah? And he says, the son of David. See, he must be the son of David. To sit on David's throne, he must be the direct descendant of the king of Israel, King David. But how many of you realize, and I know many in this room do, and many people out there in cyberspace and on television around the world, some of them know and some of them don't know, that you are not going to be able to easily collect on this, because the Christian New Testament scriptures, there is no direct ancestral lineage of Yeshua to King David. It's not there. But I'm going to show you the answer, the $10,000 answer tonight. And one of the reasons why I believe that I was thwarted to a significant from getting the Chronological Gospels finished because of some ancient manuscripts that had not been yet discovered. See, when the King James Version of the Bible was translated, the basis of that was what was called the Textus Receptus. Robert Estienne, also known as Stephanus, I believe it's in 1550, with his team of scholars, assembled all of the Greek manuscripts available to them, and they selected what they considered to be the most authentic, the best Greek scriptures that were available back then. They did not have access to the over 5,000 extant Greek manuscripts that we have available to us today. In fact, among those 5,000 Greek manuscripts, there are over 250,000 variations in the New Testament alone. Now, some people, when they hear that, make sure this is on, okay? Many people, when they hear that, they become afraid. 250,000 variations and 5,000 manuscripts? How can we trust it? Well, remember, the New Testament was transmitted to us in Koine Greek, common Greek, street Greek. And from one part of the empire to another part of the empire, they used the Greek language on the street just like we do in America. Up north, we use language and we use figures of speech and we use words differently than we do in the south. The east and the west are different. We choose different words according to how we need to transmit the subtle nuances of the language where we live. And that's why we have different variations in the Greek language. And we also have things where scribes would add in their own notes, put them in parentheses as they did later on, but they didn't have a footnote protocol back then, and so the scribes would make explanatory notes in the text, and that's what was transmitted down to us. These are not things to be afraid of, ladies and gentlemen. These are things to be recognized. And so when you see a difference between manuscripts that come from a family manuscripts from the 2nd and 3rd century, and then you have another group of manuscripts that comes from the 13th century, if there's a difference in there, you study the difference. And you attempt to understand where the reality is and get back to the original. And that's what why it's taken nearly 40 years, over 38 years, to compile the Chronological Gospels, to make sure that I am accessing the best manuscripts available, that I'm able to take care of all the apparent contradictions. And ladies and gentlemen, after all these years, I can confidently say there are no contradictions in the Gospels. There are contradictions in what we think it says. There are contradictions in translations. But we can dig back and we can solve every one of these. And I'm going to show you some manuscripts tonight that are the real treasure on this very thing. Now I want you to look at number 2 before we go on, because we're going to address both of these tonight for our worldwide audience. Number 2, prove from the Hebrew Scriptures that the prophets said that the Messiah shall be called a Nazarene. And we recognize this from Matthew. It says, Yeshua went up and dwelt in Nazareth, so it might be fulfilled, which is spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. They say, prove from the Hebrew Scriptures that the prophets said the Messiah will be called a Nazarene. Try as you might, even the Church of the Nazarene cannot find the answer to this. I mean, a worldwide denomination that names themselves after this and after this verse cannot find the answer to this. Well, I've got a hot news flash for many of you out there. The Bible was not written in Elizabethan English. Moses did not speak in the English of Chaucer, all right? It was Hebrew. And that very verse in Matthew, Papias, the disciple of John who wrote the Gospel of John, said that Matthew wrote his Gospel in the Hebrew language. We have to dig deeper, because if you want to prove from the Hebrew Scriptures he shall be called a Nazarene, you can try for the rest of your life, and it will never, ever happen, because the Torah and the prophets, neither were they written in Elizabethan English. So tonight, we're going to take you into that, and so I hope that every one of you will be able to check in on the $10,000 reward when you get to on our tour in Israel this spring. See, all you have to do is have these answers, pick up your money at the gate, and your trip to Israel is free. So, there we go. So I want to start out with Matthew. In Matthew 1:1, we read, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. See, he must be the son of David if he is the Messiah. Because Messiah means anointed one. That means the anointed king of Israel, anointed by the priest. And we're not just talking about an anointed one. We are talking about the son of David who will rule from his throne and rule the earth with a rod of iron. He who sits on the right hand of the Most High, who will also be a high priest forever, not after the Levitical or Aaronic priesthood, but after the order of the Melchizedek. This is the prophecy that is in Psalm 110 that the rabbis adhere to, believe in, and Yeshua quotes it and even throws out a question to them that they are unable to answer. Where is it answered? It's answered in the Chronological Gospels. Because what you read in Matthew and what Yeshua's question is and how he questions the Pharisees, unless you go back into the Psalm and back into the Hebrew language and into the culture and what the Pharisees were teaching, you will not understand why the Pharisees can't answer it, and you will not understand the answer of what Yeshua was looking for that will just change your life. But it's here in the Chronological Gospels. Matthew 1:1, we read about this being the genealogy, the scroll of the genealogy of Yeshua, HaMashiach, the son of David, the son of Abraham. When you go to the end of this genealogy, we read that in verse 17, so all of the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. From David to the carrying away unto Babylon are 14 generations, and from the carrying away unto Babylon unto the Messiah are 14 generations. That's what it says in English. That's what it says in Greek. However, we have a problem because you count them and it doesn't add up. 14, 14, 14. That is the problem. In the Greek text, the Aramaic text, and the English text, it's not there. Period. Now, I'm going to show you, because don't be afraid. Just because your English version of the Bible just happens to be in error in this place, do not be afraid. Do you think the Almighty would leave this earth without a testimony, without at least two witnesses that He protects His word and watches over it no matter what men do to it? Well, I believe so. Matthew 1:2 says that Abraham begat Yitzhak, Yitzhak begat Yaakov, Yaakov begat Yehuda, and his brethren. And we go right down, we can count them. Abraham's the first generation. Remember, from Abraham and to David are what? 14 generations. We can go right down the line, and we can count every single generation. And Obed begat Jesse, and Yishai begat David the king, and David is the 14th generation. So we can confidently say that, all just by counting on two hands and 1 foot, all the generations from Abram to David are 14 generations. Then we read from David that he, the king, begat Shlomo of her who had been the wife of Uriah, which is Bathsheba. And then we count on down Rehoboam, Aviah, etc., all the way down. Josias begat Jeconias and his brethren about the time they were carried away into Babylon. We see that Jeconias, again, is the 14th generation. And from David unto the carrying away unto Babylon are 14 generations. We can see it. We can count it. It's all there. And then, after they were brought to Babylon, we are now in the 12th chapter of Matthew, chapter 1. The 12th verse, Matthew chapter 1. Jeconias begat Salathiel, who begat Zerubbabel, and on down the line to Yaakov. Yaakov, the 11th generation, who begat Joseph, the husband of Miriam. Now, Joseph is the 12th generation. If Joseph is the husband of Miriam, that means they are the same generation, does it not? Okay, so we got Joseph, the husband of Mary, as it reads in the King James Version. It also reads this in the Greek version. And who is the husband of Mary, of whom was born Yeshua, which makes him the 13th generation. So, after reading this, we can all confidently see that from the carrying away into Babylon of the Messiah are what, 14 generations? No, they are not. Not in any Greek text on the planet are there 14 generations. And so, in every other translation that was done, English, Japanese, Chinese, Swahili, Spanish we have to deal with, Korean, it's still only 13 generations. What is wrong with this? Because we see the Greek translation of the scroll of Matthew records the genealogy of Yeshua through Yosef, the husband of Miriam. Is Yosef, the husband of Miriam, any relative of Yeshua? No. No relative at all. So why are we given this genealogy? Yeshua, who is the son of Abraham, the son of David, because this is the lineage, according to the English and Greek text, this is the lineage of Joseph, the husband of Miriam, who is not even related to Yeshua. We got a problem here. And there's only 13 generations. According to the authorized King James Version of the book of Matthew, according to every extant Greek text of the book of Matthew, from the carrying away into Babylon under the Messiah are only 13 generations, and it doesn't matter how you squeeze it. Now we're going to go to Luke very quickly here, because we have another genealogy in the book of Luke. And Yeshua himself began to be about 30 years of age. Now, how does anyone begin to be about any age? See, the NIV correctly has this, and many translations add the word ministry, because that's what it's talking about. He began his ministry being about 30 years of age. Now, the word about is very important, because many people treat the word about as if it's the word peri in Greek, which is like perimeter, which is around 30 years of age. Okay? So how old was he? Oh, he could have been 27, he could have been 35. It all depends on which star of Bethlehem you want to use for his birthday. And that's how they get away with it, by using the word about as if it's the word peri. But that's not what the word is in Greek. Greek is an extremely precise mathematical language. That's why I love the Greek language. I'm so thankful that we have the New Testament in Greek, because it's a mathematically precise